Change is not just coming, it's already here. There's a certain pruning that's happening within Christianity in America that I think is going to be incredibly healthy, and it's already in process. Here are 25 shifts that are already taking place in American Christianity. First is a shift from shallow to deep. We can go 1 inch deep and a mile wide, or we can go a mile deep and 1 inch wide. And we're seeing that people are opting more and more for meaningful, deep connection, relationship, and study, rather than all just that shallow business that doesn't really get you anywhere different much than the world. Number 2, a shift from large to small. Large is that surfacey, less intimate, less transformational space. Small is deep, intimate, transformational space. People are beginning to see the value of that and are being drawn more and more into that because they're lacking that in their lives. Number 3, a shift from public to private. You look at our church buildings today with hundreds of people in them, sometimes thousands, 10,000s of people in them, and it's incredibly public, which means it's less transformational, it's less confessional, it's less intimate, it's less relational. And so when we move from public spaces into private spaces, we have a better opportunity to connect, to go deep, to be transformed, to experience the work of the Spirit among the people of God, to hear the stories of how God's working among His people. So there's a shift from public to private. Number 4, a shift from the priesthood to the people. We're going to see less formality. We're going to see less hierarchy. We're going to see less people jockeying for position and more of a shift of ministry and the work of the church down to the people. Partly because churches are shrinking and are not going to be able to afford to staff every single thing that needs to be done. And so they're going to, that's an exaggeration. I know that's what we have volunteers for, but I'm saying that the perception is that we hire people to do the big jobs. Those big jobs are going to trickle down to the people who need to be doing them boots on the ground and doing them on a volunteer basis. And that means the same amount of work stretched out over more people. And that actually may be that we get more work done because we have more people working, even though they're working less than someone who's paid to do it. Number 5, a shift from religion to relationship. I think people are just tired of going through the motions. They're tired of checking the box. They're tired of just going just to show up, just to say they did, or just to not get a letter. They really want meaningful relationship, both vertical with God and also horizontal with other real people, because we're lacking that in our world. And we now live in a Zoom culture. You're watching this on YouTube. We're not in the same room talking. And so people are deeply desiring that kind of connection. Number 6, a shift from planning to praying. I've noticed that there's a correlation that the more we plan, often the less we pray, but it needs to be flipped. We need to be praying relentlessly and planning a little bit along the way as things begin to get clearer. As we pray more, we're going to rely more and more on asking God to show us the way, for Him to make the plan and for us to see it and to execute on it, rather than for us to do lots of planning with very little praying. And one of the things that's going to instigate that shift is, again, the fact that churches are shrinking. People are going to get more desperate. People are going to begin to see more their need for God, the reliance on God, less reliance on self, because we're going to see that we are not in control of where all this is headed. We're not going to be able to fix this on our own. And so we're going to have to move from planning to prayer. And that brings us to number 7, a shift from control to surrender. The more desperate we get, the more we hand over control and we begin to surrender. More and more church leadership is going to make this shift from us trying to control and manipulate every outcome to surrendering to what it is that God has in store for His people. Number 8, a shift from gathering to scattering. We value gathering because it looks like a victory. Our brand is growing, attendance is up, giving is up. But what we see in the New Testament is not, we do see gatherings, corporate gatherings, but we see a lot of scatterings where the people go out and begin new things. In American Christianity, we like to gather leadership. We like to gather talent. We like to get those kind of teams together. I get it. They work. Makes things efficient and effective. But there has to be a scattering of talent, a scattering of resources, a scattering or a sending of leadership to begin new things in new places. That's that apostolic focus of the church, to be sent into new places, not just to gather, and to amass and hoard resources amongst ourselves. And that leads me to number 9, a shift from poaching good leaders to developing leaders in-house. There's a mentality that churches look for that person who has kind of been groomed by the smaller church. Now they've gotten to be a really good speaker, and now people are asking for them to speak different places and at different events. And so now that little bit bigger church is like, hey, we want to hire that person to come in here who we don't have any connection with them. We have no relationship with them, but they sure seem to be the next great thing. And so we're going to hire him and bring him in-house. And so there's like a poaching of ministers from smaller churches to bigger churches, when what really is going to be happening is there's going to be more leadership development in-house, because churches are going to be struggling to get those people from other churches because the budget won't be there, because it's not going to be as attractive to the younger ministers. On and on it goes. You know the issues. But we're going to have to be developing leaders in-house to serve the people who they already know, where they're already located. Number 10, a shift from center to peripheral. The church has already made this shift. The church is not the center of the town. You know, you go into towns in Latin America and you see a Catholic church right on the city square. It's like that is symbolic of something, a message that was being sent and communicated when those towns were built, that faith was central to the life of the community. But that's not really the case anymore when it comes to the life of the community. And the beautiful thing about that is that's where the church was born. The church was born in the margins. It was not born in the center. It took 350 years to come to the center. And when it came to the center under Constantine, it actually kind of wrecked things. Going back to the margins is actually a really healthy move. Number 11, a shift from affluence to sufficiency. We really want to be a part of an affluent church. We want to see success. We want to have the big budget. We want to be able to afford the big show and do the big thing. It's like, no, we just need sufficiency. We just need to have enough. Because when we get that affluence, we begin to stop relying on God. We begin to start relying on ourselves, and we think that we have everything we need. And so we stop praying. We stop surrendering. We try to be in the center. All these problems come about. We have to move towards sufficiency, that God is enough, and what He's given us is enough. And we're going to do with what He gave us what we need to do. That's very hard in the American system, because in the American system, we hire people and build buildings and have all this debt and have to service the debt and service the payroll, service the maintenance, that you can't just live from a sufficiency standpoint. You have to live from an abundance standpoint. Otherwise, you're going to have to fire people. You're going to have to sell facilities. You're going to have to downsize and move into rented spaces. And we're losing our affluence. And that's going to be a good thing for us. Number 12, the shift from buildings to homes. Some of this is going to be forced upon the church, where you're down to 15, 20 people. You were once 300 or 400. You're sitting on a $10 million piece of property, and you're like, let's do something different. Often it's forced upon a church to make the shift. There are very few churches that are like, we are going to sell the facility, downsize proactively, take that money and have a kingdom vision and move forward proactively from a new situation within 10, 15, 20 homes or 2 or 3 homes, and then begin to grow again from there. Number 13, a shift from donation-based ministry to marketplace ministry. And what I mean by that is donation-based ministry is, hey, come on Sunday, give your 10%. That's going to, 10 family supports one minister, like all that kind of stuff. And it's not going to really work out as well anymore, because people are not giving. Attendance is down. Inflation has gone up. People's expenses are more. Their giving is going to be less. And that means that people who are in ministry are going to have to move to the marketplace to make ends meet. And that's actually where they're going to find their mission field, rather than be just in the church bubble. That will actually be a good thing for ministers to have a foot in both worlds. Number 14, a shift from done for you, which is the big show with the stage with only a few people up front on Sunday, to done together. Koinonia, partnership, participation, fellowship. We're in it together. It's relational. The whole stage with a few people and the masses with their all backs, like looking at the back of the people in front of you, that's going to diminish on some level. Again, partly because it's forced upon many churches, because numbers are just going down, and you might end up finding yourself in a circle. You might end up finding yourself in a classroom or in a rented space. But we're going to have to move from this whole priestly idea that, like the real professional, amazing people are going to do the really great work on Sunday and put on the show, and then we're just going to spectate. It's like, we're going to do this together. And that means our kids are going to participate. A lot of times churches that are shrinking don't have a lot of kids, and that's a real issue too. We'll talk about that sometime. That moves us to shift 15, and that's a move from passivity to activity, that the church has to become alive, that people have to begin participating. And that doesn't mean just more programs, more time in volunteer programs on Sunday, on Wednesday night, on Sunday night, and during Bible class time. It means discipleship. It means getting people involved in the lives of other people. That's real ministry. Number 16, a shift from state-approved to underground. I'm seeing less and less people who are interested in 501c3, who are interested in kind of being a legally recognized entity, and who are moving more underground. It's like, hey, who cares about the tax break? We don't want all the strings attached that come with that. Although it's fairly minimal in the whole scheme of things. At this point in time, that could change down the road. And when you move from state-approved, census recognized to underground, that means the numbers are going to be harder to track. It may look like the church is shrinking faster than it actually is, when the church may actually be growing, because people are not meeting in officially recognized places, reporting officially recognized numbers, but are meeting right in your neighborhood and you have no idea. Number 17, a shift from America-centric Christianity to Eastern and Southern-centric Christianity. South America, Africa, Asia, Middle East even. We are losing influence in America. That's a good thing. That is a really good thing. We need more voices. We need that kind of diversity of experience. Number 18, a shift from going to church to being the church. And again, this goes back to meaningfulness and purpose. People are just tired of I'm going to church. Hey, you want to go to church with me? It's like, well, we already know that's not really the way the Bible talks about it. We already know that we are the church. The building's not the church. We get that. But I think people are going to more and more embrace and experience and live that concept rather than just talk about it. And the reason for that, again, is purpose and meaning. It's like, just go to church, just go through the motions, sing the song, give the money, listen to the lesson, go home, nothing's changed, still have the same old bad habits, haven't formed any deeper relationships, not being discipled. I think that gets shifted to, we are the church, we're living out the identity of the church and the mission of the church right here in our homes, with our kids, with our families, in our neighborhoods, to be the church. Number 19, a shift from the city or county church to the parish church. And this is how churches operated hundreds of years ago, was they would put little churches out in the neighborhoods, out around where the population centers were, and that was the parish for that church. They were not drawing people from 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes or miles away, because people didn't have the mobility. There wasn't the technology. It took forever to get there if you had to ride a horse or a buggy or whatever. And so church was right there with the people, and that meant it was part of the community. That meant the people who were part of that congregation were local to that congregation, lived in the same neighborhood, saw each other more regularly during the week because you lived in close proximity with each other and with the building. Number 20, a shift from the big names to the no names. I think some of our young people just don't care about the influencer culture. They're not interested in making a big splash. They don't care if you know who they are. They just want to live a meaningful, purposeful life, making an impact in the world for all of eternity for Jesus. And so there's going to be, I think, a shift away from this huge push for influencer culture within the church. Not to say it's going to go away. It will always be there, but I think it's going to get diminished by this next generation. And these will be people you have never heard of and you will never hear of making the biggest impact. And I think that's super biblical. And there's no Bible verse that tells me that, because you didn't hear of these people because they're not in there. But there's a lot of people who made tremendous impact whose names you will never know. And that will always be the case. And I think it's going to get to be more and more the case in the future with American Christianity, because our younger generation, again, just doesn't care. It's where they're headed. Number 21, a shift from the ministry corporate ladder to ministry impact, kingdom impact. We had a whole generation, a whole business model for church that moved people up through the ranks, up through higher pay, better benefits, more retirement, more vacation. And people were like, I just don't care anymore. I just want to live a life of purpose and impact. Number 22, a shift from programmatic to discipleship. We're seeing our programs are wearing people out. People are tired. People don't want to participate. They don't want to volunteer, but they want deep, meaningful relationship. They want to be in the Word. They want to be in prayer with each other. So we're going to have this shift from programmizing and controlling everything to people who are actively seeking out, taking ownership for their own faith, their own community, their own relationships, their own discipleship. Number 23, a shift from branded to kingdom, unbranded. There's a big shift to brand everything, to market everything, to bookstore everything, to get the theological goods and services and ministerial ecclesiological goods and services out in the marketplace, sell it for $19.99, etc. There's going to be a shift away from that, I think, where people are going to be more open-handed, less about the money, more about the impact, more about the kingdom, unbranded Christianity, just the way it started. Number 24, a shift from pragmatic to sacrificial. Pragmatic just means we're going to do what works. The kingdom does not work like that from a human perspective. The kingdom doesn't always seem to work when it's working at its best. And sometimes when we think it's working at its best, it's actually not working well at all. It's just us being in control. And so the alternative to pragmatic, in some senses, is sacrificial. We are doing what does not come natural to us, what does not even always appear to be making an impact, which is a sacrifice on our end, because this is not the way we would do it, but it's the way God said to do it. And so we're going to do it His way, even though it doesn't always seem like it works, because He's going to make it work when we do it His way. Number 25 is related to that, and it's a shift from fast to slow. We're going to move from pragmatic to sacrificial, 24, and now we're going to move from fast to slow. Fast means just, hey, hire the staff, raise the money, hire the staff, start the program, get the volunteers. To we're going to move slow. We're going to move slow. We're going to move deep. We're going to take our time. We're going to pray about it. We're going to understand it. We're going to discern together. We're not going to just jump to a decision to get through the meeting. We're going to take weeks. We're going to take a few months even sometimes just because we're listening. We're waiting on God's lead. He doesn't always move on our time. And so we're going to move from fast to slow because God works in process. He doesn't just work through snap decision. So that's the 25 for me. What would you add to this list? Which ones you say, no, I don't see that at all, Matt. You're way off base, and here's why. Let's talk about it in the comments. And in the meantime, here's another video about what's going on with church. I hope you'll take a minute to watch. Love that you're on the channel. Love that y'all have subscribed. Hit the like button, and we'll see you again soon.